This always makes me laugh because every time we film, like PTs are always in a compromising position.
Hey. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're lucky because this is such a great opportunity to utilize Michael. Michael, say this is week 1, 2, or 3 of someone's first half marathon or marathon journey.
Okay.
What is the 3 things that they should be doing?
Well, in terms of running, I think it's important especially for first timers or people just getting into it, is making sure they're building a proper base, a foundation. So getting used to the frequency of running that they expect to carry out throughout the entire process, or what they've been doing if they have a little bit of experience. Being mindful not to do too much too soon, running too far too quickly. I think implementing good habits early on in terms of injury prevention.
Smart.
So rolling before and after workouts, doing some kind of mobility and flexibility drills, running drills, the things that are going to help us become a better, more fit runner throughout the season, but implementing those things early.
Yeah.
And then also another thing to implement early is strength training. I think that's one thing that it needs to become a habit. It needs to be ingrained in the schedule, and it needs to be noted that it can't come out in terms of making room for additional runs down the road when you want to add a 4th day or a 5th day or whatever it is to your schedule. I think if that's what your coach or your schedule calls for, as long as it doesn't compromise what you're doing in terms of strength and stability, I think that's something that needs to be in somebody's schedule from the start and all the way through the taper phase.
I agree. How many days a week should someone be doing strength work?
I think 2 days a week is more than enough.
I agree.
I think 1's quite not suffice. I think 3 can be a little bit too much. And I'm talking I'm a big advocate of body weight activity, 3-dimensional movement. You can add weight or load to make exercises harder as you become more fit. Kettlebells and dumbbells and vipers and medicine balls. We're kind of doing things that are going to mimic what you do while you run. A lot of single leg stance type of exercises, whether it be in squatting and lunging and step ups and things of that nature. But again, 3-dimensional, but always focusing on the full body.
I'll link below to Finish Line has made so many videos about dynamic warm-ups and different exercises that you can be doing at home. So I'll link to those below. But for people who are worried that they're doing them wrong or they just feel stupid doing them, what do you say to them?
Well, if you don't have a program to follow per se, whether it be a video or a trainer, it might be a good way to start is getting your hands on some kind of video sequence that you can kind of follow the guide and then learn as you go. I mean, I know it's often hard, but I think you could, in today's age, that you can always find something that's, whether it be online, and obviously making sure it's by a credible source and makes sense for you.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of runners don't need the deadlifts and the powerlifting. It's more about 3-dimensional movement. It's about working on strength, but at the same time working on stability and mobility and flexibility and all those things that's going to make us a better runner.
Why should people go to PT? I think too many people wait until they get hurt to go to PT, especially, speaking specifically towards marathoners. Yeah. I always tell everyone I coach, it's not a matter of if you're going to get hurt, it's when.
When?
And my job as your coach is to make sure that when that happens, it's a teeny tiny speed bump and not a 3-4 week, or maybe even you can't even run the race.
Yeah.
Why PT?
Well, it's again, you're investing a lot of time and interest into a sport that you're passionate about, that you want, a goal that you really want to achieve. We don't often know our bodies in terms of our mobility and our stability and our strength, so having somebody that can kind of look at some of your limitations, and again, whether that's range of motion or strength or other variables, and address those variables before they become an issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And don't wait. If your left hip is weaker than your right, for example, very globally speaking, then why wait until there's an injury when you can start working on those things specifically? But people don't come to PT and say, oh, my glute is weak or my hip extension is very limited. It's pain, right? Pain is what brings us in. But the concept of prehab and looking at the full body and saying, okay, like, here are some of your limitations, you know, like, oh, your left ankle doesn't dorsiflex as much. Your right or left hip is a little bit weaker in this muscle group. And then putting that all together and, you know, creating a program for someone to follow that addresses these limitations, because these limitations are what creates the injury, right? Mm-hmm. It's the whole idea of looking at the body as a global unit, and thinking about, you know, the criminal of the equation and the victim. You know, like where the pain often isn't always the reason why we have pain.
Yeah.
You know, but finding out what's creating the Achilles tendonitis? You know, is it something at the hip or even higher up or at the ankle joint?
What do you think makes a really good PT?
A really good PT for runners.
Yeah.
I think it's somebody who's going to take the time to look at your movement globally.
Yeah.
I think it's somebody that's going to spend time with you and not treating multiple patients at once. Somebody that's not going to tell you not to run just because you have plantar fasciitis. Like, listen, if your pain is getting worse while you run, or it's moderate or severe when you start, then okay, that's a conversation for another day. But there's ways to work through that. Not saying to run through pain, but kind of use those two questions as a guideline, right?
Yeah.
Like, am I going out and limping out of my front door, or when I get down the block, am I already in a significant amount of pain? Like, you're already injured, like those things need to be addressed.
Yeah.
But having someone that's gonna, like, you know, do a lot of manual therapy with you, give you a good home exercise program that's gonna kind of understand what your goals are, I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think you should trust your PT intrinsically, and if you don't, I think that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. And I talk to a lot of people who are like, I don't know. And I'm like, then why are you going to them? Stop going to them.
Yeah.
Stop giving them your money. What are you doing? I think it's mostly just because people don't know.
They don't know. I mean, and I have this conversation with my own family members that, you know, they know I'm a physical therapist, but then they're not close enough to come here. And obviously,
oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, but you give them advice, some of that, but like whatever, like they go and then they're dealing with somebody that's got 6 patients at once.
Yeah.
And they just assume that's what physical therapy is. You know, it's almost like air traffic control. Like, all right, Kelly, you go to the bike and you go to the treadmill and you stretch out your hamstrings and you do these exercises. Like,
you can't.
Yeah,
it doesn't work like that.
No, exactly.
That's how my sister's PT was, and she did not get better.
Yeah.
Until she came
Most
here.
people don't, and unfortunately, like, you can work with somebody. We work with somebody for 45 minutes. It's a pretty good amount of time to kind of figure out what's going on in somebody's body, be able to treat it. You know, so they beneficial treatments, right? Not just things that, you know, they can do on their own.
Yeah. What about recovery? What do you think people should be doing that, like, to better recover? Besides sleep, which is so important.
Sleep, hydration, eat well. Again, it's, you know, from a purely physical thing, it's, you know, to me, it's soft tissue hygiene. We talk a lot about dental hygiene, and it's a nice comparison because I think that really sticks to people's minds. Like, I assume you brush your teeth.
Yeah, but I don't floss, and I know I should. And that's what I say foam rolling is. Foam rolling's like flossing. It's
those things that our dentist always tells us, right? We are in such a habit of taking care of our teeth, but when you're training, we know that we're adding so much stress to our soft tissue and our joints and other structures. Like, how are we not taking care of that, right? It's, I could do some stuff for you as your PT, but what are you doing the other, how many hours per week, you know, to counteract or what you're doing in terms of running? Like, there's a lot of stress put on your body, so you need to be doing your rolling and your mobility drills and your running drills and things like that.
These are good tips. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We can look forward to lots of this. We're just gonna steal all of your wisdom.
Oh boy, I hope I have some. I think I just gave it to you. That's all I got.
If you have questions, let me know. We'll ask Michael next time. The end.